ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनात् मृत्योर्मुक्षीय मामृतात् ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनात् मृत्योर्मुक्षीय मामृतात् ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनात् मृत्योर्मुक्षीय मामृतात् उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनात् मृत्योर्मुक्षीय मामृतात् ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनात् मृत्योर्मुक्षीय मामृतात् ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनात् मृत्योर्मुक्षीय मामृतात्
I'm Marvin Mills. I am going to lecture today on the Taj Mahal, the most beautiful building in the world. And what I will attempt to show is that the Taj has been misinterpreted through the centuries up to today, and I will try to show evidence and convince you that the Taj was really not made by the Mughal dynasty, by Shah Jahan, but was built centuries earlier. I am an architect and an architectural historian, and this has been an interest of mine for many years. This is a portrait, a miniature portrait of Shah Jahan, the Mughal emperor of the 17th century, who is alleged to have built the Taj Mahal for his beloved wife, Taj Mahal. This fiction has been circulated for a very long time, and it is very appealing, and it is very romantic, but it is important to get the record straight so that history is telling the truth. The man who first revealed that the Taj was not built by the Mughals, but was built centuries earlier by the Hindus in India, is a man named P.N. whose book on the Taj Mahal, a Hindu palace, came out in 1968. And I consider it one of the most important books in the last 50 years on the question of the history of architecture. What he has to say in his book about the Shah Jahan is that he was far from being a builder of anything. Shah Jahan was a destroyer. And the words of Shah Jahan's court chronicler, Mullah Abdul Hamid Lahori, it had been brought to the notice of His Majesty that during the late reign many idol temples had been begun but remain unfinished, at Benares, the great stronghold of infidelity. The infidels were now desirous of completing that. His Majesty, the defender of the faith, gave orders that all the temples that had begun should be cast down. It was now reported that 76 temples had been destroyed in Benares. So that this man, whose record of building in India depends on his having an ecumenical attitude, a fair attitude, a reasonable attitude towards his Hindu subjects, was really quite the opposite. He was dedicated, a man opposed to the Hindu religion and all its symbols that were incorporated in its architecture. And here's the Taj Mahal, as everyone thinks of it. It is absolutely a stunning building, but the odd part is that it is really a more beautiful building than it has been given credit for. Why? Because it has been assumed that this is a tomb for the wife of Taj Mahal, but actually it was a palace for an earlier Hindu ruler. Since its real function is been a palace rather than a tomb, then its beauty is enhanced because its form is more fitting to its function as a palace than as a tomb, as I shall try to demonstrate. The symbols in the Taj are overwhelmingly Hindu, and while it may appear to be Muslim to most of us, it is only because we're reading back into history from the Taj, saying if this is the Taj, then these must be Muslim symbols and forms. But notice in the lotus leaf here that this form, this semicircular horseshoe form, is based on the lotus leaf, and the lotus leaf is the most important symbol in all of the Hindu religion, perhaps. This form is repeated in the bulbous dome of the Taj Mahal. We also have to consider that if this is a building that was around in the 17th century, then it must have been, somebody must have noticed it, somebody must have lived there. What's the record of it having been there up to the 17th century? And in this case, we have the chronicles of Babur, the first of the Mughal emperor. This in Persian, which, when translated by P.N. Oak, reveals that in these words, in that chronicle, that it was indeed an extremely lofty, full of verdure to the south of the great city, Agra. Prior to this was the palace of Raja Man Singh. In exchange of that, the Grand Palace was granted government land, so lofty that in its stature it is a memorial to the courage of sky dimensions. In other words, I interpret this, as does P.N. Oak, as a description in the earlier Babur chronicles of the Taj Mahal, where Babur stayed for a while. There was a meeting there that was recorded in the Babur chronicles, that a large party was held in the pillared porch of a dome building standing in the middle of Sultan Ibrahim's private apartments. This too is a description, in my view, of the Taj Mahal. And here's the Taj. As one approaches it from the entry, it is beautifully outlined against the sky. It is a sculptural piece. It is beautifully designed. And here I'm showing you a picture of this is Vishnu. This is the most important of the Hindu gods. And he is lying on the great serpent, asleep, waiting for the world